Right now I'm going to share with you 7 ways that you can catch more waves at the world's best and most crowded breaks. But first I want to share with you a quote that you should always keep in mind, which is that the better a surfer you are, the less people there are in the water. And what that means is that the crowd doesn't matter so much when you have the right concepts, tools, and skills in mind when you're surfing at crowded breaks. I was inspired to record this video for you because lately I've been hearing so many misconceptions about what you should and what you shouldn't do in surfing, where you can surf, where you can't surf, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And I wanted to cut through all the bullshit and just tell from my point of view from surfing places all over the world and what I've learned, and share that with you so that you can take that knowledge with you into the water and have a more fun, a more fulfilling, a more exciting, and a safer experience when you're in the water. Number 1, show respect, get respect. That's something that is so simple yet so many people forget. And let me give you an example. The North Shore is famous for being an intimidating place. There's so many stories of people getting beat up by locals, and people are truly scared of the North Shore, but that's when they haven't been there before. And in reality, what matters is whether you show respect or whether you don't. Yes, it is crowded, but the single determining factor in your experience that you have in the water is how much respect you give, because the amount of respect you give to the people in the water is the amount that you're going to get back. If you drop in on people, if you give people bad looks, if you don't say hi to people, people pick up on that, and they are going to be more inclined to try to fuck you over. They're going to drop in on you. They're going to give you the stink eye. They're going to look at you sideways, and they might even get mad and start yelling at you. So you always have to remember, take it upon yourself to always show respect. Number 2, position yourself strategically. And what I mean by that is you need to observe how the lineup looks at a break. You need to observe where the different types of waves are coming in, because it's never just going to be one type of wave. You might be surfing a right point break, but there's going to be different sections. There's going to be an outside section. There might be a section even further from the outside section that's not as big, but then there's going to be that. There's going to be a more inside section, and there's going to be another inside section. Some waves might have 10 different sections, and there might be hundreds of people spread out over a very large area. There might be 50 people in a small area. There might be 100 people in an area with 3 takeoff points. So be very clear about how guys are positioned into the water, how they're clustered, see who's getting the waves, who's getting the best rides, and just observe before you do anything. And when you paddle out, one thing I like to do, especially if it's at a more big wave spot, I like to paddle out to the side of the lineup. If there's a channel, paddle out in the channel. If there's a rip, paddle out in the rip. Sit to the side of the crowd, and you just observe, you just watch, you get a feel for it. And as you start to understand what's happening, then you paddle into the crowd. And the same thing applies as you show respect. You don't just paddle right to the deepest point and just start trying to get waves. You observe and you position yourself strategically. An example, yesterday I surfed for the first time in my life the world famous Sunset Beach, and I've been seeing videos of this place since I was a little kid. I've been seeing it in the magazines. I've heard so much about it, and the first thing I did was I talked to the lifeguards and I said, okay, what's the best way to paddle out here? And they gave me so much valuable information, and one of the things they said was use the rip to paddle out. And I said, okay, and it was good advice. And another thing he said was it's solid 8-foot Hawaiian out here, so it was, it was about 15-foot faces. It was a solid day, and I was on a 7.0, which is, a pretty small board for a 15-foot face. But what I noticed was there was the inside section with about 30 guys on shortboards who were preparing for the contest this following week. And then on the outside were the people on bigger boards. They were on 10.0s, 9.0s, 8.0s. And I was on a 7.0, so I knew I was on a smaller board. I knew I was going to have to catch the wave at a steeper point. So what I did is I paddled out in the rip, sat to the side of the pack for a little bit, and I watched. And as I saw how things were set up and where the waves were coming in, I paddled deeper, and I paddled deeper, and I paddled deeper, and finally, with the right steep wave that came in, grabbed it and got a good one, and I was in business. Because if your first wave is a good wave, you're going to be cruising from there, and on top of that, people notice, so they see you get a good wave, and then it's going to be easier to get the next one. And it's momentum, it's mental, it's psychological. Number 3, don't drop in on people. And this seems very self-explanatory, but it's surprising how many people miss this. And also, more specifically, slightly more subtle, is not just don't drop in on people. If you see someone who is already catching a wave, don't paddle for the wave. Don't make that guy have the awkwardness to have to yell at you or to have to, have a collision with the boards. If someone is already on a wave, don't paddle for the wave. And that's one way that you can have a better experience at a crowded spot. It just creates animosity. It creates people giving you a bad look. If you see someone already on a wave, don't paddle. Wait for your turn. Wait for a good one. Number 4, also very simple, but a lot of people miss this one, and it's get the fuck out of the way. And what that means is if someone's on a wave and you were paddling out and you all of a sudden are caught and they're dropping in, first of all, don't just sit there in the way. Either paddle to the side or duck dive or get out of the way. And another thing is, this is a little more specific, but if the wave is coming this way and the guy's here and you're here, don't try to get in front of him. Take the wave on the head, take one for the team yourself, but get out of the way. And the reason for this is, 1, it's respect, but more importantly, it's safety. People can get badly injured when there is a collision of boards, when the boards get tangled, because after that, then bodies get tangled and the bodies hit the boards and you can get sliced by the fin. That happened to me at Puerto Escondido at La Punta about 6 years ago. I got my leg sliced open so badly, it cut through the muscle. They had to put stitches in the muscle. And you know why? All because of some guy that was sitting away from his board, next to his board, in the way of my wave. I was coming down this wave that was about a double overhead wave, and I was, you're moving fast on those. You're moving, 25 miles an hour, and it was just the slightest contact with his board. I fell, and in the washing machine that ensued, I felt the fin go into my leg. And the whole reason that happened was because he wasn't paying attention. He didn't get out of the way. So don't just sit there like a deer in the headlights. Make the water a safer and more enjoyable place for everyone and get out of the way. Whatever you need to do that. Number 5. I touched on this before, but I'm going to go into more detail now. Make your first wave a good one. And the reason for this is for you, and it's also for the perception that the crowd has of you. And if your first wave is a good one, it's going to affect your whole session for you, because you're going to see that you got a good one on the first wave, and then you're going to be able to replicate that. The other reason is if you're in a place that's really crowded and everyone is seeing everything that's going on, if you get a good wave on your first one, people are going to notice that, and it's going to be easier for you to get more waves, because people like when you don't get in the way and you can surf. That's really what people want to see, those two things. So make your first wave a good one. Number 6, watch the break before you paddle out. Understand what is going on with the currents. You have to ask the questions: where are the riptides? How is the whitewater rolling? Is it rolling sideways? Is it rolling at an angle to the beach? Is it rolling straight towards the beach? Is this wave hollow? Is it throwing, or is it rolling? Is it partially hollow and then rolling, or vice versa? All of these things matter because they are going to determine how your session goes. So if you are aware of them ahead of time, it's going to make things smoother. And again, we're talking about safety. We're talking about water safety. And another thing is, don't hesitate to talk to the lifeguards if there are lifeguards at the spot, because they appreciate that, and it does show respect, but it also can teach you things that you wouldn't have known. For example, when I was in Sunset yesterday, I learned that if I were to lose my board, the lifeguard pointed to an object that was, half a mile away on the beach, and he said, you see that triangular thing on the beach? If you lose your board, you want to swim towards that thing, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up all the way over here. So he was giving me this gem of information that would have, if I had lost my board, it would have made things much easier, and I would have saved energy and time because I had talked to the lifeguard. So that comes in many different forms. One of them can be talking to the lifeguard, another can be just watching the break before you paddle out, even talking to guys that know the wave and just see what's going on first. Number 7, use the right equipment. And the reason this is important is because different wave sizes, different conditions are going to require different boards, and especially the lengths of the board. You know, if you're surfing 8 to 10 foot waves, it's going to require a different type of board and a different size board than if you're surfing 3 to 5 foot waves. So you see that a lot. You know, I've seen this a lot at Puerto Escondido. It's 10 foot faces, and there's guys paddling out on a 5.6 or a 5.8, and then they are going for waves and they're getting hung up at the top, and they're going flying over the falls and having these horrible wipeouts when it's really unnecessary. So having the right equipment is not just going to keep you safer, but it's you're going to get better rides. You know, at a big wave spot that's throwing heavy like that, unless you're Kelly Slater or someone who's really comfortable surfing small boards in heavy barreling waves, it's better to surf a bigger board. It's better to, what I'm saying I always have is, it's better to be over gunned and on a bigger board than to be on a smaller board. And for example, if the waves are 10 feet, I'd much rather be on a 9 foot board than on a 5'6" board. Even though the 9.0 is too big, a 5'6" isn't going to do shit for me. It's a potato chip in those sized waves. Details down to the type of leash that you have matter. Again, if you're surfing waves up to 5 or 6 feet, you can have a really thin leash, but if you're starting to surf 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot, 15 foot waves, you need a big wave leash. The difference is that those leashes are longer, they're thicker, and they can hold more stress being put on them so they don't break as easily. Even details to the string that attaches the leash to your board matter, because if that string is frayed, if it's worn down, it'll break, and then you're gonna have to swim in. And it's important to be able to handle yourself if you do have to swim in, but it's better to avoid it when you can. And part of that is use intelligence in the ocean. And what I mean by that is never turn your back on the ocean. Understand always, even on a small day, and respect the power and danger that the ocean presents. Because at the end of the day, the ocean is the one with the say, and the ocean, you can't tap out in the ocean. The ocean doesn't care. So if you get caught inside when it's 15 feet at Puerto, which has happened to me, or even 20 foot, if a 25 foot wave lands on your head, you can't say, oh no, I'm done, stop. The waves are going to keep coming if that was what was happening. If there was a set, the set is going to finish its run, and they're all going to land on you. So when you have that mindset of always erring on the side of caution, you're going to be more inclined to stay out of danger, keep yourself safer, and keep other people safer, and live to surf another day with more energy and not being injured. So if you always exercise caution in the water, it's going to help keep you safe, it's going to help keep other people safe, and it's going to just make your experience in the ocean better all the time. And if you want to learn more specific techniques that I use when I'm in the water, you know, paddle strength techniques, breath holding techniques, ways to pull into barrels at different levels and get your barrel game better, and also hit movements for explosive power, I have created a free training that I invite you to check out. The link is below this video, and I will see you in the next video. Please comment on anything that you would like me to see, that you would like to see me make more videos about, and I'll see you in the water.